Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So the sources you see here on my left, the translation of the King James into English was done from these sources here. This was written in 1516 on the left, and the one on the further right was 1550. So what I'm going to do in this video is show you some textual differences between the two texts, one from 1516 and one from 1550, and just to show you how ancient Greek from the 16th century was being used and how it was actually being written compared to what it was in the original text we see from the Codex Vaticanus, which is like 4th century AD. It's pretty cool to look at for me and for anyone else who I would say is a linguist who likes to study these languages and how they change and shift over time. This text here, from my last video, I showed that the King James Version in English does not match this. This is the original Greek that it was translated from, and the English King James Version does not match this. I showed that in my last video, you can go take a look. But in this one, I'm going to show you the textual differences and technicalities that they're using in ancient Greek in the 16th century to write these texts and to show you how the Greek shifts and changes. And now look how they write Abraham in 1550 compared to 1516 on the left. Now you've put the alpha, the beta, and then you've got a row, and they've connected the row in shorthand to the first alpha, Abra, because they're connecting those two letters to make one sound, Abra. Now this is cool to look at, but I do want to show you some really interesting bits with the shorthand and how they combine two different letters in Greek to make it one whole word. So the word is pseudo-prophet, and I will show you that. Okay, now you can see this is the word pseudo-prophetai, because here's the psi, so you got psu, epsilon, upsilon, delta, omicron, omega. Now, they've put the p, as you can see here, connecting to the row, will look like two rows, or an omicron, prophetai. You would put the p here in front of the omega, and then the row, pseudo-pro, but they're connecting the P with the rho and the omicron above the omega to make it shortened in a shorthand version, so it's pseudo-prophetai. It's very interesting how they're doing this in the 16th century, in 1550, when this was created. So this is how they're writing these texts or copying out these texts in the 16th century. And here's more evidence of this right here. So you've got the P, the rho, over the top of the omega. So then you got another one here, P, row connected over the top of an omega. So this is how they were writing. They're connecting the rows to the omegas to make it into one word. And they're connecting all these different letters. This is a version of shorthand for ancient Greek and looks like the beginning of cursive writing, how we just start writing, connecting letters instead of blocking it out each letter by letter. And there's so much more evidence of this right here. Over the top of the omega, P, rho. Now you can clearly see that this is not just an aberration with a couple of versions here or there. This is a stylistic thing they're doing back in this text and this time, because you can see they use it for like an index. Pretty cool to see as someone who's studied shorthand and seeing how they're doing this. And look, I'll show you this one. This is Christos, and I'll show you that more closely with this one. Ego eimi o Christos. I am the Christ. It says it right here. So they've connected the rho to the iota, and then they put the sigma, and it looks like they've connected. Now this is a thing in shorthand, in modern shorthand, but there are some instances where they don't connect the sigma to the next letter. So I'm not sure if they're doing it in this case, but this is what it looks like compared to the modern shorthand, where this is what we do in modern. You can connect the O to the T with a line straight across to the top of it. So if you were writing Christos, you would connect the sigma with a line to be the T, which is this line on the right here. You put that next to that, and it becomes an ST. And if you want to make STH, you just make it a longer line. If you want to make STR, you would go S, T, and then down to the right, R. That's how you do it in shorthand. So I'm not sure if they're actually doing this, but it appears to be like they're doing this in this case here. Because you got the he, the rho, the iota, the sigma, which we don't use those terminal sigmas in the middle of a word. We only use them at the end of a word in normal ancient Greek. But what they're doing in the 16th century is using a sigma, a terminal sigma, at beginning of a word and in the middle of words, which doesn't happen. But they're still, you got the omicron there, so they're connecting the sigma to the omicron, which in modern shorthand would be ST to the omicron. So that would be Christos, which is very interesting to see. They're using a shorthand in this era. And because we always love referencing a pharmacon, this is the text that the King James is based on, and it is talking about drugs in ancient Greek in the 16th century. Pharma koi. To, for, by, with, or in the drugs. So depending on the rest of the sentence, you would be talking about with drugs. Pharmakoi. You can't get away from it. So King James is based on knowledge of drugs in ancient Greek. And the writing in 16th century is based on a shorthand version of the ancient text into a 16th century ancient Greek amalgam of all these different texts that they're pulling from in Byzantine sources to make this new 16th century looking ancient Greek with shorthand that we can identify, or at least I can identify, and other people who've done shorthand I'm surely they can identify this stuff as well if they looked at it. Pai disce, this is the part where it talks about duo leistai down here. Jesus was crucified with two leistai, and I showed you in the last video and many other videos, leistai is not thief, which the King James translates this word to as being a thief. It's not. It's a trafficker, a pirate, a paiderast. And this is how they're writing it, duo leistai. So let's just go to a random page, have a look and see if we can pull anything that is in this text that looks interesting, that is just completely random. Let's have a look. Koinonian. They use a mu for a new now. M for an N. Because you can see right above that, Ionian, Ionic. And they use a mu at the end of the word instead of what should be a nu in earlier Greek. Now that's Ionic. I've been through Ion before and shown you what Ion is. And in this version of the New Testament, they give you the old script, and this is how it was originally written on the right here. Just all block letters, and that is the book of Mark right here. Codex Vaticanus, Mark 16. So there should be a Neaniskos here in Mark 16. Neaniskos in a stolane leakane. Neaniskon, here you go. Peri beblamenon stolane leokane. Kai ektham beste, and he was amazed. This is the bit where it's talking about the little boy in the tomb in Mark. Another Neaniskos in the tomb, dressed in a white robe. That is how you read this text. This is the Codex Vaticanus, so 300 to 350 AD, 4th century. This is 4th century Greek and how it's written, compared to what we're looking at for what was used for the translation of the King James English. Let's just pull up the King James and see what it says. King James Version. Here we go. Verse 2. Eternal life. It's not eternal. It's Ionic. Ionion. As I've shown before, the god Ion is representing cyclical nature of time, not eternal time, which Chronos is linear time. It's distinct. So Ion and eternal are different. So this is another part of how this is mistranslated. And I just pulled that up randomly. This is more mistranslation from these texts. Not just one word, leistes. There's also Ionic, which we just saw they put eternal, which the things we're talking about in this time period with Ion is the god, and it's all around the synagogues, and all the synagogues have got Greek writing in them. And Ion is the god of outside of time, not linear time, not eternity. So there you go, a bunch of differences, technical differences between the language and then translated to English. And this is the original. These two are two versions of the same text. One was written in 1516 and one in 1550. And this is what the King James was translated from into English. And I've just shown you some textual differences and how they were writing in this time period. And then we had a look at the old block script, which the original Greek was in, and it was a completely different writing style. So I'm just showing you, this is how the language has changed over thousands, nearly over 1,000 years, in between 350 AD, from when they were writing in block in the Codex Vaticanus and others, to writing into a shorthand version of ancient Greek in the 16th century. Is beginning to look more and more like this writing style that we would see today with the cursive script in English. It's just cool to see, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below.